Hello, and welcome to another edition of Sharpe Takes, the second season. And once again, I want to thank both MCTV and NEAT TV for making this show possible. And I want to ask you, the viewers, to please let us know what you want to hear about public affairs. We have focused mostly on public education. Today, we're taking a little divergence from that and talk about climate change and natural resources and the work that the legislature has done around that. I am delighted to have as my guest Representative Amy Sheldon, who's been in the legislature 11 years now, and before that on the Planning Commission in the Middlebury area. She is very concerned and knowledgeable about energy and natural resources in the state, and I'm delighted to have her on the show. Welcome, Amy. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Dave. It's great to be here.
So let's start back a little ways to get a little history. Let's start with the Clean Heat Standard. What was that and what happened to it?
That's a good question. The Clean Heat Standard was, and it is still in statute, is an effort to help low and moderate income Vermonters in the transition away from fossil fuels through the funding of programs to help them electrify their homes. And it grew out of what folks characterized as a carbon tax, and it became more and more complicated in its structure to address issues that were brought up throughout conversations over the years. I mean, you may remember we started out with, I think, a flat carbon tax proposal. We went to this thing called the Essex Plan, and then we went to the Clean Heat Standard. And, I think really what it is there's an internal debate, or within the legislature, the debate is what is Vermont's role in addressing climate change, and how do we assist low and moderate income Vermonters in transitioning away from fossil fuels? And we're still in that conversation.
Yeah, because we still have a problem, don't we, with climate change?
Yeah, we still have a big problem. And I think more and more people are recognizing the problem we have. I think individuals who can afford to are transitioning. I think industries are transitioning. I think we have a parallel universe happening right now at particularly the federal level, but also probably the local and state level, where people who can afford to are making the investments they need to address the inevitable transition. It's become obvious we need to clean up our economy by reducing the use of fossil fuels.
Yeah, and it seems to me from a personal perspective is that this ability to transition is more than just theoretical or a decision that you want to participate in dealing with climate change. It's also just a basic economic decision that when you do things like weatherize your home, put solar panels on, transition to heat pump hot water heaters and heat pumps to heat your home, you're not only moving away from fossil fuels, you're also reducing the cost of running your household and having transportation. Mm-hmm. So now the people who can afford to move in this direction continue to move in this direction. The people that need financial assistance to do so have kind of had the rug pulled out from under them, both federally and statewide. Isn't that the case, or am I overstating things?
No, I don't think you're overstating things. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think we were still looking for those tools to use to help more people transition, but we were on track to do that. And now we're taking a step backwards. And as a state and probably as a region, I think we're going to need to work together with the other states in our area to address many of the challenges that are before us, not just energy or environmental issues that we focus on in my committee, but more broadly, we're going to need to work together as our federal government becomes less reliable.
Yes, so the last election, the federal government changed course, obviously. Also, the state, to some extent, changed course. It doesn't seem to me that the administration or the Republican majority in the legislature is interested in doing very much about climate change or helping low-income people move towards electrifying their homes. Is that correct?
I think that's true. I think there's reluctance and they would say our part is very small. I actually believe that every individual's actions are what add up to the change we need. And so we may be very small, but when we work together in Vermont, we can, like you said, assist on the affordability front for low and moderate income people and also do the right thing for the environment. But when you were speaking about the benefits of electrification and insulating and all that, I live in an old farmhouse. We went from burning 6 cords of wood a year and being moderately warm to 3 cords a year with insulation and heat pumps 3 cords a year, and we're quite happy now. So I think it does make it's a commitment on our part to electrify and use less energy, but also we're doing better because of it. So, yep, they're not wrong that Vermont's contributions are small in terms of actual CO2, but in terms of what we stand to gain, we need to make these investments.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm a gadget guy in automotive tech by trade, and so we did, the solar panels and the gadgets first, and then finally my son, who does this energy work for a living, convinced us to air seal, and foam the cellar. And it occurs to me afterwards that that's the first thing everybody should do, because our house sort of overnight or within days before and after the work in the cellar, our house was more comfortable to live in, regardless of how we heated it and regardless of the cost. It was just more comfortable to sit in the living room.
Right.
And what were you able to do, and what has the legislature done in the last while?
So we're in the middle of a biennium right now. The previous biennium, the 2 years of the legislative session of legislative sessions, my committee, I'm currently the chair of the Environment Committee, but in that previous biennium we were Environment and Energy, and so we did a lot of both. We had a lot of things ready after years in the making and working on them. One more big piece in the energy side was the Renewable Energy Standard, and we made updates to that to speed up and kind of working with our utilities across the state, make increased commitments to decarbonizing the entire electric grid, which is another way of really making a big impact that individual Vermonters, then are less. It's not less necessary for them to generate their own electricity or do all those other things, at least in terms of the larger goals of decarbonizing the electrical grid. But there's a lot of sort of nuance to what we did, but we basically accelerated our commitment to getting to 100% renewables.
So back up just a second. Explain to me what an energy standard is. What's that mean?
The energy standard, renewable energy, is it's a commitment for where your energy is coming from at the grid level, so that we're about 30% nuclear still, we're 30% hydro Quebec, and then another 30% solar, other. And so it's the mix of energy that goes into the electric grid to create the energy that we need. And so we're always trying, to clean that up. And we have, I won't remember the number of utilities across the state, but I think it's like 19. There's one big player, that's Green Mountain, and then there's the co-ops, and then there's smaller ones. But we managed in our renewable energy standard to meet, I would say, all of those electric companies' needs, and we sort of tailored it down to, the Green Mountain Power was ready to commit to 100% renewable much earlier. The key to the renewable energy standard is the definition of what's renewable.
Yeah.
And we can argue about whether Hydro-Quebec is really green energy because of the methane that comes out when they flood another area. And there's also we have created ways for us to not expand our investments or our commitments to buying that power, and to make it more on par with what other states have done. We have counted renewable energy credits from Hydro-Quebec differently than other states, and that's caused a little consternation. I don't need to get into the weeds on that one, but definitely we worked out a lot of details because of the commitment of all the stakeholders on that conversation.
Interesting. Yeah. So, oh, I just had a thought that flew through my brain.
All right.
I just read recently, I think I read recently, or advertisements from solar power companies, maybe even locally, that now solar electricity is cheaper than some other forms of electricity, but in terms of production. Is that true?
That is apparently true. I've been reading that as well. Yes. So it's become less expensive to purchase solar, and that's a good thing. And I know there's conversations this session about allowing people to have the solar at their own homes, these little portable solar
Yeah.
panels, which have become quite popular in Europe. And they appeal to folks who are renters and want to also contribute to the diversification of our grid and the greening of it, the cleaning up of the grid through their own use. So they're willing to purchase. I mean, it's a few $1,000s for someone to purchase one of those solar panels, but it's very appealing to a certain group of people.
And I read that too, and that's kind of exciting because renters have been sort of excluded in many ways. The financial advantages of doing insulating your basement, for example, are not necessarily available to or interested. The landlord's not necessarily interested in that because it's not going to affect the rent. They're not going to make more money because they invest $5,000 in sealing and insulating one of their cellars in one of their homes that they're renting out. So why should they bother, right? Because the renter's paying the heat bill. On the other hand, why should the renter bother investing $5,000 in the owner's property, right? In the landlord's property. So it's been difficult for renters to find a way to participate in moving towards renewable energy. How do those things work? Do you just hang a solar panel out your window and plug it into the socket? Is that how they work?
That's my understanding of it, but I'm not really a gadget gal.
Yeah.
But that's my understanding of it. I'm assuming it must require. Well, actually, it doesn't require. I think there's a converter for the AC/DC kind of differential that
Yeah.
would exist, and that must be the key to it. Is they've figured out how to
To match the
make it work.
frequency and
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. That's pretty exciting. If a renter can invest $1,000 in a solar panel, no, it's not going to power their entire apartment, but it might charge their cell phones and maybe power their television or
Yeah.
some portion of their power and
Yeah.
reduce their power bill. And they can take that from that apartment to the next apartment when they move apartments. So that might be a pretty exciting way for renters to participate in the transfer of energy use from fossil to electricity.
The other piece of what's called sort of distributed energy generation is the reliability when the grid does go down, having people be able to, even if it's small things, but maintaining communication by having their cell phone charged if the power's down. Or I know Green Mountain Power is very committed to distributed generation, but also storage. So as a GMP customer, we have 2 Tesla batteries in our basement, and our solar can charge those. And then they use them all. They use them all the time when things are operating well. And then when a storm comes, they stop using them, and they're available for us if our power goes out.
Yeah.
So you get this kind of win-win, but it also is another way of adapting to climate change and the fluctuations that our environment is undergoing, and just our, extreme weather events causing the grid to go down. That folks can stay in their homes and have their water running and basic
Yeah.
services going.
Right. I was tempted to do that, but I just can't bring myself to put any Tesla product in my home. I just can't.
We did it well before the current challenges, but you're right. We don't love that either. But they're there. We're at least 5 years in on our
Yeah.
commitment there.
Well, I think the theory is really good. The more we can sort of balance the load by what's called peak shaving, or it's sunny during the day and dark at night, and so the more we can find a way to balance how we use sort of a steady state level of electricity, I think has got to be beneficial for everyone.
Right. So the multiple benefits need to be considered, particularly by folks who feel like the carbon isn't enough of a justification. There's so many other reasons to do it that matter to people in their daily lives.
Yeah, like their pocketbooks.
And their pocketbooks.
Yeah.
Right. Affordability. So, yeah. I mean, and then I actually, if you're ready, I would also talk about other things we did
Yeah.
more in the environmental land use categories.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, last biennium, I guess first in, we're in 23, we passed what's now called Act 59, which is Community Resilience and Biodiversity Protection Act, which sets statutory goals of 30% of our lands and waters being conserved by 2030 and 50% by 2050. But even more importantly, there we created, along with stakeholders, a vision for land use in the state of Vermont that codified what many people already had in their minds and their planning commissions of, compact village centers surrounded by rural working lands and then functioning natural areas as the sort of vision for the state of Vermont. And then we have our goals. And some folks were questioning the 50% goal. That sounds like it sounds like a lot. But when you think about the Vermont landscape, you see a landscape that is actually probably close to 90% natural. We know it's about 80% forested still, or again. And so when you think about Vermont that's 50% developed, I think you don't see anything close to the Vermont we have today. And so we set that bar as, permanently conserved at 50%, but with the expectation that through good land use planning, we would also, it wouldn't mean the other half was fully developed, but would have other land uses. So we did that, and that work is underway. It started with an inventory of already conserved lands, and depending on which lands you count as supporting biodiversity, we're between 24 and 27% already conserved permanently in Vermont. Another reason that we thought we could go higher. And the real purpose of that was to understand where the conserved lands are. We have 9 biophysical regions in the state of Vermont, which means the foundation of different natural communities exist in these 9 biophysical regions. It's kind of like based on the geology of the area and the topography of the area. And we know we have a lot more conserved lands in our Green Mountain spine in the National Forest. But high elevation lands are the lands that are least developable, and we've invested the most in their conservation. But in order for us to conserve biodiversity in the state of Vermont, we need to make sure that we're conserving lands across all of the regions of the state, and we weren't. So the idea was to really draw attention to where the gaps were, and then start investing in those places where we were at risk of losing critical natural communities, just sort of because we weren't really paying attention to where we were doing all of our conservation work.
So where are we at in Addison County?
Well, that's a great question. I'm not sure I know Addison County, although the second bill may answer that question that I'll talk about. But in Middlebury, we looked, and because about a third of our town is in the Green Mountain National Forest, we're already at 30% for sure, probably more. But again, so focused on the mountains. And in Addison County, the big concerns are around like the clay plain natural community type, which was highly converted for agricultural uses because of the nutrient-rich value of those clay soils and the flat topography of it. So we know we're behind in conserving what's known as the clay plain natural community types in Addison County. But to your bigger question about where are we at in Addison County, in 2024 we passed Act 181, which is has the same name to it, Community Resilience and Biodiversity Protection, but it's through land use. So we updated statewide land use regulations, and now that process is underway. And the regional planning commissions are now working on future land use maps, which should identify areas both for development, but also for conservation, and help communities get to the question, answer the question of where their community's at. So the idea is to have this happen really from the ground up and have towns do their planning first, and then that feeds into the Regional Planning Commission's future land use map. And all of that is nested into or driven by the goal of trying to increase density in the areas we want human development, people to live, while conserving wild areas around and working farmlands and forests in between. And all of that is so that we can maintain 80% of the species that we have in Vermont through this kind of Vermont conservation design, which now I realize I'm digressing, but that's also the foundation of both of these things.
Yeah, interesting. So, so I've often said that local planning commissions are some of maybe the most important volunteer or public service that people can do, because that really tells us what our communities are going to look like 10 years from now, right? If we do all the towns at half-acre zoning, and you get house after house after house, that's in clusters or density, versus what we did, I don't know, in the 70s, I think, we did this notion of a 10-acre lot.
Yeah.
And so what we did back then, hindsight is 2020, right? What we did back then was actually push people out of the village centers and into 10-acre plots of land where they didn't have to be so concerned about septic, I think was the basic push behind that.
Yeah.
And so now we're trying to turn things around and bring development back into the village centers. I think we're seeing that in Bristol, where the zoning regulations have changed and permitted higher density, or encouraged even higher density housing. Is that fit in with what the legislature did?
Yeah, 100%. And part of what we did was create some density requirements for communities to have areas where they were encouraging dense development. I think we went down to quarter acre, mandatory. You need to have some of that in your town. We also told towns they needed to lighten up on parking requirements, and make them based more in the actual use of the development and the type of families that would be living in it. I think one thing that's really important when you're talking about land use is to make the link that a lot of our climate change problems, the biodiversity loss of habitat problems, they are a land use problem, and there's a land use solution for them. Again, the way I see it is, living within a village center, you can be connected to nature if you have this functional landscape where even in our towns, our wetlands and our waterways are protected from development, so that you have a livable community. You don't have to get in your car to go recreate every day. You can walk out the door, walk along a bike path, or place to see wildlife, interact with nature, get to the grocery store, and meet your basic needs without having to get in your car every single day. And that's a goal. And then you reduce your energy consumption, you reduce your time in the car, and you save space for nature to happen around you.
Interesting.
So they're all linked.
Yeah. But you don't want to create like urban environment in every community, do you? I mean,
Not in every community. So I think this is where Addison County shines. When you think about Addison County's communities, Middlebury is, the Shire town. It's kind of got the most economic activity in it. But right there with us are Virgins and Bristol, very active communities. And then we have a lot of smaller towns that are, some of them are not interested in having a commercial center at all. You have Shoreham. There's some interest out there. They've done some very interesting things for a small town in terms of encouraging their village to grow a little. So I think is like primary, secondary, tertiary. Again, back to those local planning commissions and what the vision is for their communities. I think we need all kinds of towns,
yeah.
and in Addison County, we're blessed to have them.
Yeah, and hopefully with the work of the legislature, I would say a reawakening of how important our communities are. In the 70s, we did things like billboard law that still impacts. You know when you leave this state and when you return, because when you leave, the first thing you see is billboards on our neighboring states. And when you return, the first thing you see is wonderful green mountains that we're known for. And I think, it seemed like a fairly simple thing, but has a huge
Huge
impact.
yeah.
And we did the bottle bill, which needs updating. Is there any effort to update the bottle bill?
There is. You might remember we made it across the finish line, but the governor didn't like it a couple years ago with an update. And so what we're looking at now is taking pieces of that update to do it more incrementally, where we would update the structure. And there's a lot of towns that actually are kind of redemption center deserts. Montpelier being the most prominent of those. There's very few opportunities for residents to redeem their bottles, so a lot of their bottles just go right to recycle. So we're looking at creating a structure to make sure that the producers of the bottles are responsible for making sure we have redemption centers across the state and assisting the other local redemption centers in upgrading their facilities. And then hopefully we would get to a place where we added material. And I think the important thing about the bottle bill, because people will say, well, why can't we just throw them in the blue bins? You can, but the cleanest material, the most desirable material on the other end for the manufacturers is the pre-sorted bottles that go into the actual states that have bottle bills. They're very desirable. And little interesting fact, I think it was 60 days for a can to go from your mouth into another can if it's in a returnables program.
Huh.
So
Yeah.
it's still a very important piece of how we deal with solid waste.
And I'm told that aluminum is the most recyclable product. It can be
Exactly.
reused
Right.
numerous times.
Can be.
And so we want to make sure that we capture every piece of aluminum we can, right?
Right.
In some sort of recycling process.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Thanks to you and the legislature and the work of numerous people over the years, Vermont's still a beautiful place to live in. And we do have reasonable biodiversity. And I want to thank you and your committee and the others out there who are doing their share to keep Vermont the kind of place that we're proud to live in.
That we all love. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We're
So
blessed.
thanks.
You're welcome.
And thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Once again, another edition of Sharpe Takes, this time looking a little bit at the environment and energy. Thank you for joining us. Please let us know what topics you'd like us to cover and what guests you might like me to bring in. Thanks a lot for listening.
Want to be a guest on Sharpe Takes? Have an opinion you want Dave to hear about? Email davesharp@gmavt.net.